Hey Gwenters, and welcome back for another episode of Gone Gwenting. Today we are going to cover, per customer request, Skellige deck. But I also want to do a couple other things at the same time. I want to do a brief touch on the importance of contracts, as well as the seasonal mode. But I want to talk specifically about long-term contracts. So there's two in particular I think that pair really well with the seasonal mode. We only have a few days left. So, if you're making your push to the pro ranking or top 500 ranking, then go for it. As for me, I was playing around with too many decks. I was too concerned about getting this XP boost here, which I think is better for my long game to get those prestige boosts. But especially since I'll only have to go back up 3 ranks to get pro ranking, and I can make more videos about that and give some better advice next season for what's important. But for me, as you can see, I'm coming to the wrong screen here. I come down here to my ranking. I'm in top 1,000. I was in top 600 a few days ago, but when you come to my this is what I did want to show you, my ranked score. When you look at my current versus my top for Syndicate, is terrible. I've lost so many games trying to make Syndicate work, and they're just mediocre. Honestly, that Horde nerf was terrible. I really like the developers. I love CDPR. I think they do a great job at balancing, but they just did too many nerfs. They crippled Syndicate Horde and did virtually nothing about Harmony, right? They still have deep reach on poisons in Skellige. You still have crazy boosts across the board on Harmony, and you nerfed both ends of the Horde ability, making it so that the cap is lower. How much it takes off of, instead of taking your Horde cost down by 3, it takes it down by 2. It also makes it so that you only get 2 coins per round. It just really, really hurt that deck. And then the Louisa Savola nerf as well was horrific, right? You could no longer use Azar Javed to protect Passiflora. Instead, you had to use him to protect Louisa because she has an order now, and you have to wait to use her order. Theoretically, you could use Petri's Filter, but I hate the spend on Petri's Filter just to get Zeal. If you've had success with that, please let me know. But I think especially mixed into a Syndicate deck, Zeal makes no sense when it's just Louisa who needs it. I think that's one of the other kind of dumb things that's required there. Maybe a better way to have done it, in my opinion, would be to have done like initiative on Louisa, right? So that you couldn't pull her out with Vivaldi Bank or with Royal Decree. That would still make her so she wasn't so OP. I also think making her base score of 6 was a little ridiculous to also have Intimidate. So maybe strip Intimidate and knock her down to 5, but still give her that deploy. You could do all 3 of those things, and it still would be more balanced than what they've done with the order. The order on Louisa just makes it worthless. And you still have to get Savala into your hand. Otherwise, Tin Boy's your best reach with the free tribute. Albertus is a cost of 5, but he has a profit of 2, so you really have to have 3 coins. Anyway, kind of going on way too long about this when you requested Skellige, but all of that is to say, Harmony is the meta right now, in my opinion. Beginning, middle, and end is Harmony. Harmony is just so good. And for that reason, Skellige is a little bit tougher to make a video about, especially on ranked matches, but they have a special place this season, as long as Season of the Viper goes on. So you have a couple of contracts, and let's pull these up. So right now I have one pulled up already. One is this Purify, right? And it maxes out at 500 times instead of 1,000. Most other things are 1,000. So I'm going to add this in as kind of like a footnote. Purified is helpful. Gremist can help with that, and we'll cover that in a minute. But this Crimson Bloodbath is just epic in this seasonal, right? So this typically, and we're just going to come in here. We'll go to all. Oh, pardon me. I need to turn on my Bluetooth is on. I'm not sure why it's being slow. But we'll just come in here. Oh, there it goes. We'll type in bleeding. So you can see this Crimson Bloodbath. You need to get make enemies take damage from bleeding 1,000 times. And then there's also Vitality. Right? I've already gotten this one. I got it actually during this seasonal. So if you're working on Vitality, this same deck can work, but I highly recommend Visigata for that Vitality. If you've seen my Northern Realms video, you'll know how much of a boost you can get with this seasonal with Visigata, as well as with some of the other boost units, Temerian Drummer on a Stringer. But I think this Skellige deck could do it for you as well. And over the long haul, you're going to find Vitality is much easier to get than Bleeding. Bleeding just, you have to proc the bleed. You have to make sure that you don't kill the unit that has the bleed, that they don't, if they're monsters, they don't consume it or they don't purify it. So you have several things you got to balance against each other in order for bleeding to work. Because again, it's take damage from, not just place bleed on 1,000 enemy units, right? So and then for those of you who haven't played this seasonal, I talked about this a while ago, but I just really want to rehash this. But this seasonal is whenever a unit is damaged by another unit or itself, give the damaged unit bleeding with a duration equal to the damage amount. Whenever a unit is boosted by another unit or itself, give the boosted unit vitality with a duration equal to the boost amount. So we are going to use a close parallel to the Great Swords deck that is getting a lot of traction right now. I do not have more Kvarg Heart of Terror. He's going to be my next buy probably. He is just a mean green fighting machine of a card. He'll damage an enemy unit by 1 and repeat it over and over again until the actual target is damaged. So if you use it on somebody who gets boosted a lot, if you're in a mirror here, Dagger Two Blades or on Great Sword is a great example. But you can just damage them over and over again until they actually get damaged. And that pairs really well with Dagger Two Blades, who whenever an enemy takes damage, boosts himself by 1. He has to be on the melee route, but that works really well. And then also we have on Great Sword, whenever an enemy unit on the opposite row takes some damage, boosts himself by 1. So that's a great pair to do. Hammond will help switch a row on a unit who's row locked, much like Dagger Two Blades, where they have to be on the melee or ranged row in order to do something. But he also can force a unit to another row and they'll take bleed damage so that he can actually end up boosting on Great Sword. Now I've added in Northern Wind for this banish ability, 2 decks that have really become annoying with a couple of units from them. So notably, Syndicate decks, they're still in use, even though it's not as big now. But the Flying Redanian, I think a lot of the decks are being used right now for this XP boost. They do have plus 75% XP. But since it only has 3 health, damage it by 4 is going to kill it, and then it's going to be banished, so it can't come back in further rounds. And the other one that is a huge point play that this is really good for is actually the Lippy deck. I'm happy to showcase that if you want to see more Skellige decks. I can make a video about that. If I have time, I'll maybe even try to make that today. But basically, that Lippy deck relies heavily on Sarasan Crate, who has only 4 hit points, but she will spawn. Typically, people play her to the front row, to melee row, where she'll spawn a Shield Maiden. Shield Maiden will take damage from the leader ability or some other way, and then call all other Shield Maidens from your deck, which is 2. And if you use Lippy, you'll flip them back into your deck from your graveyard in a later round. Either use Royal Decree or Matahuri to pull Sarasan Crate back, and then you'll play her again, spawn another one, and then pull all 3 of those. Pull all 3 of those out of your deck onto your melee row, and that is a 4 plus 4 minus 1, so 3. So you get 7 points just from the spawn, and then because you can damage them yourself with the Ursine leader ability, you are also going to spawn those other 3 4-point Shield Maidens, which is 12 more points, right? So you get 7 plus 12, 19-point play, bing, bada, boom. And it's a great thinning card for early round as well. It makes the deck a little bit draw dependent. That's why it hasn't got as much flash, but candidly, I like the Lippy deck more than I like the Great Sword deck. The Great Sword deck is... I just want to address this, okay? So anytime you try to tell me you have a deck that's not draw dependent, I'm gonna call BS. I mean, there's only a few counter examples I could give. I think if you were deep with Vivaldi Bank, Dodric Limro, and then like two of the Blind Eye Eavesdrop cards, then maybe I'd say it wasn't super draw dependent. But I'd also need to see some thinning cards like Roach or the Witcher Trio or the Tidecloak Raiders. Even if you have all of those thinning cards, your first hand is going to matter a lot. And let's say you got all of your good cards that you wanted your first round, you're still in draw dependency because you don't necessarily want to play all of your good cards first round, and you also don't want to have to hold on to them and pass on 7, because then your opponent can push you, especially if you're on red coin, right? So I think there is no deck that is not draw dependent. That's mostly what I want to reiterate here. And the Lippy deck is pretty draw dependent. You do need a couple of specific cards, but there are some ways around it, and it is boss, especially if you can toss in Roach and Knickers. Then you get this Lippy play that is just a flop with Mark Varg, Roach, and Knickers. Tons of points on the board all at once with 4 different cards from a 1-card play. I mean, it's a total riot. And the Saris makes it a total jam. So anyway, that's why we have Northern Realms, is to combat that second Saris play. Again, that's a 19-point play. We can kneecap that first round with that Northern Wind. So that's why we're holding it. And then the other, it has some synergy with this deck with the Great Swords and with Dagger Two Blades, right? Because whenever an enemy takes damage, they get boosted. So even though it won't necessarily in the seasonal mode cause bleeding, because notably this took me a while to figure out. I thought it was a glitch. It has to be damage if damage is taken from a unit or by itself, right? So this is only from units. When you do damage with special cards, it does nothing. So I do want to show you this deck because it does have some more flexibility in the regular play. I think if I really wanted to make this perfect, I would take out some of the special cards like Marigold's Hailstorm, but I really like Marigold's Hailstorm for some of the specific play here. So we're going to do our redraw here because he is Skellige. I'm doubting he's playing Gedeneth with Onrolf. I could be wrong, but in the seasonal mode, I kind of doubt he is. Damoon Corsair we're going to keep. Then we got 1, 2, 3, and then a 4-card ship pull right here. We do have a lot of ships, so that's going to be okay. Grimace we'll keep, and we'll just go into this. Not a lot of alchemy cards here though, so I probably don't want to have to pull Grimace this round. So Grimace will give you a Purify and then refresh this ability whenever you play an alchemy card. This is good for that contract that I was talking about before, where you need to purify, you trigger Purify abilities 500 times. Notably, I think this you only make progress on this when you actually purify something off a unit. You can just use Purify on a dead unit, but it won't do anything for you, right? So no reason to worry about that. All right, there's a decent chance he'll kill this on Great Ship. A lot of people love to use, or I don't have it in my hand, but Stunning Blow is a great way to kill on Crate Longship. Oh, it looks like he did not. Interesting choice. All right, so now whenever I play a unit, he's actually going to damage it because that on Great Ship is the one causing the damage. So let's actually move him off of that row. And we'll wait to use this on Great Sword next turn. And that Great Sword will trigger after the end of his turn when he takes the bleed damage. So we'll still get 1 point from that. And we can boost him up using this tactical advantage. And I don't mind having him there for the sole fact that when I play him first round, I can call him back later with Freya's Blessing, which gives me some flexibility to use him in 2 different rounds. So Freya's Blessing is a really great card. Gets you a specific play. I think of it a little bit like Ghouls and Monsters deck if you're very new, but Ghouls are consuming the unit. Freya's Blessing lets you play that unit again, it'll give it doomed now, so that you can't keep replaying it over and over again. But you can actually use Gremist to cleanse off that doom. And hopefully we can get to that Lippy deck. I'm going to show you guys that. There's some fun gameplay you can do with him too. Mork Varg and Elf and Onion Soup. But I digress. Alright, he seems to be a bit nervous about my damage dealing here, but we're gonna just boost up this Greatsword, let him take damage up there. After he takes damage at the end of this turn, we'll play this Damoon Corsair and start proccing bleeding directly onto him. That way. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I think the weakest part about this deck, in my opinion, though, is just purely the fact that this great sword is so vulnerable. I mean, I started off with tactical advantage, which let me boost him by 5, but you have to play him and then wait to trigger his abilities until a later turn. I mean, you can have On-Crate Longship to try to get some damage that way, but I mean, it's tricky. Now, this On-Crate Warcrier is going to boost himself by 1 every turn, so long as there's a damaged unit on my side. I don't have anything that heals in this deck. This is just kind of like an all-out brutality deck. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. Alright, so he decided to take the pass on 7 after we went down to 6. I probably should have seen that coming when he placed this guy on the range row when he didn't need to, but oh well. So Hammond was a bit of an overplay for us, but we don't know how far and how deep he might have wanted to go. Granted, we might have wanted to have sussed that out, but that worked out. Those long ships can be pretty brutal, though. I will say that, depending on what's going on. Alright, we're going to try to push him a couple of cards here. He's going to have another On-Crate Longship, so we'll keep this Stunning Blow to get rid of it. This Damoon Light Longship is going to be pretty good. And this Damoon Warship is really good so long as we have On-Crate Great Swords, but we don't really have one. So one other thing to keep in mind here is we actually get the second wind, so we can play a Skellige unit from our graveyard. I really like to use that with basically 2 or 3 of the cards I have in my deck here. So Ockfist is neutral, so you can't use it on Ockfist, but if I can use it on Covenant of Steel, that's awesome. Dagger Two Blades, he's awesome. And then Wild Boar of the Sea just wreaks havoc in this seasonal mode, as you guys will find out. Alright, so my choice here now is, do I want to play, how hard do I want to go get this? This Damoon Light Longship I do not love in seasonal mode, because it's going to damage the enemy unit and damage self, and when they damage themselves, they're going to give themselves bleeding for 1 turn. So you can really only use it 3 times, because it'll go down from 5 to 4, and then the next turn it'll be down to 3 because of the bleeding, and then you'll only be able to use it 1 last time to kill itself. So, but we're just going to toss this out of here and get him angry. That's what we do. Alright, now we're at that juncture where we're down to 7 cards. We got to decide how hard we want to push him. If I can force him to use his leader ability to take the win, that would be cool, but I don't have a whole lot of engines this game, right? So I have a bunch of damage cards. I do have Royal Decree, but my Giga Scorpion Decoction is going to go really well with Dagger Two Blades and my On-Crate Great Swords. So there's nothing I really want to use, especially that I don't have any confidence that it's going to keep me up in points. Yeah, but we did get him to use Donar, and Roach got pulled out too, so I'm happy about that. So glad we played, glad we didn't just totally pass. I do think the more I've played, the more I've seen value in at least getting rid of some cards. If nothing else, you get to suss out a few of theirs to see exactly what kind of deck they've built. There's a lot of misnomer decks. I love to create misnomer decks. I love to play misnomer decks. When there's like a meta going around, I think Soldier's Ball and Double Ball are good examples in Nilfgaard. A lot of people are expecting them, so they'll hold on to a Bomb Heaver in their hand just to get rid of the artifact. But if you're not playing Ball, they're going to waste a 4-point card that's really good for nothing, right? And he's a 5 provision cost spend, so he's really getting them -1 points when you think about that over the long haul. So we did get a great sword. We got Damoon Corsair. We're going to be able to pull a random ship out. We killed one of his. He could bring it back, but I'm not terribly concerned about that. I would rather try to get exactly what I got. And I don't think this raiding fleet is actually going to do us a whole lot of good. I would rather have Okvist than that raiding fleet. And you'll find out why. So Okvist is an order card, so he's not used by a lot of people in this deck, but I have found great use for Okvist in the seasonal mode. True, because he does do that damage with the bleed, but he pairs super well with Wild Boar of the Sea. So he'll do the damage to get everyone damaged, so Wild Boar of the Sea can damage them all by 1, and then Wild Boar of the Sea can damage them all again, plus any cards that weren't damaged by Okvist by 1 once more. And then that's going to give 2-point boosts to Ankh-Crate Greatsword for each of those damages, and on and on and on. So it works just really well. Alright, now we got to kind of guess what he's doing here. Covenant of Steel I've found is really weak to Korathi Heatwave. A lot of people just will banish it altogether, that way you can't call it from your graveyard. But I don't have anything in my graveyard other than Hammond that I really care about. That Ankh-Crate Greatsword I'm going to be able to pull with this Freya's Blessing. So, thinking let's get out Ankh-Crate Longship. Oh, we have Corsair, sorry. Never mind, I take it all back. Corsair is always kind of typically the one you want to play first. Biggest reason for that, I'd say, is just purely because he gets this cooldown reduced by 1 every time you play a ship, and Ankh-Crate Longship should be one of the first ones you get out. Just to knock down some damage on the enemy unit, use up his damage. A lot of people like to get rid of Ankh-Crate Longships because they ruin their strategy or their gameplay. They also make them vulnerable to Bloodthirst. So, I think it's kind of a smart play to do. Alright, now our question here... that was smart. Alright, so he played Arnulf with Dagger 2 Blades. That way he could get... And the Arnulf works super well with the seasonal because the Deafening Sirens are just going to get the bleed. So they get damaged, then they're all going to get damaged again. So this Dagger 2 Blades is just going to be a straight up boss by the end of this. Alright, now the question is, do we just keep going for slow burn? And I think the answer is actually yes. Just keep sussing out his cards, be patient. Worrying about that Dagger 2 Blades isn't going to do me any good at this point. Now, this would be the point of having Morgvar Card of Terror. I could just attack him by 1 over and over again until he was actually damaged, which would give him a ton of bleed as well. But I'm not... I don't have great control over that right now. So, alright. I think we want to start developing these great swords.
I once lopped off 3 heads with 1 blow.
And then I think actually we're going to pull Hammond out from here. Probably should have done that last turn, to be honest. Not my brightest moment. Alright, there's Derogay. I mean, Arnulf was the only one, so he prevented that loss to Arnulf. But that's fine. Alright, pull Hammond out. And we are actually going to just play Covenant of Steel.
Who's next? Any of you's got the
And now we let it ride nice and slow. I think probably our next play will be Dagger 2 Blades. Yeah, Morale's gonna get to him, so I gotta decide.
My reason to travel, I mean.
Whether I want to save their lives. I think they're a 7-point play still, so I'm thinking yes. That also makes Grimace to target, so they're gonna want to lock or kill Grimace to prevent me from unlocking that greatsword. So that's probably gonna be their new focus. Odd play though, they're gonna have to have a neutral card. I think probably King Cobra to get that kill. Which is a weird choice since I just cleansed off the defender status. I'm not sure why he did what he just did right there. It's a weird choice as well. And then I guess it is like a net 4-point play because he would have gone down in damage. But my goal here, for those of you wondering what's going on, I want to get as many damaged units as possible, right? So this Ancrate Warrior, I'm not going to be able to get him back down to 4, and Dagger 2 Blades, same story. So I'm just going to keep hacking away at some of these other units just to get that damage going. I think for us right now, we're going to play Freya's Blessing. We're going to pull out this other Ancrate Great Sword. Place him on melee. And focus a lot of damage on melee. So I think we'll probably go Okvis next round. Then we'll pull Dagger 2 Blades out when Okvis's ability is ready. That way we just get a ton of damage. But weird choices. I think he just wasn't really aware of the fact that he could have killed the Greatsword right there. You really need to pay attention to whether or not they still have defender status on. I mean, that's the best thing I can tell you. Since he doesn't recognize that, I'm just going to hide Okvis behind it and pray he doesn't realize what's going on. It's otherwise working out pretty well for me. Alright, so we'll have Okvis ready to go. We'll play Dagger 2 Blades, and he's going to get boosted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 with Dawn. That was a weird play too, right? So Sigrifa's right, important here to read. It only summons, it does not play, right? So if I was him, I would actually have played Ancrate Longship if that's all the choice I had, but I probably would have waited to see if I killed something first. If you get the Purify on Arnulf, you could actually replay him. He's 11 points. You just need to wipe off this Doom so that you can call him out. Alright, well I feel pretty good about things. I think we're just going to call in Dagger 2 Blades, play him to melee row. Oh, he also played it to the melee row, which makes no sense at all to me, but who am I? Alright, then we play Okfist, boom, do all that damage, get those bleeds, and look at that. Our Dagger 2 Blades is up to 12, boosted 8 times, we're ready to rock. So, downside for us this game, we weren't able to pull Wild Boar of the Seas. He would have done more damage and got us more bleeding procs, so I can only do damage so many more times. So you know, this was a good way to win. If I just wanted to work on getting those bleeds, I could have done that as well. But I think my focus was more on getting this win. So we'll now use Marigold's Hailstorm and just wipe out all of these guys on this front row, and probably take down Deroge as well. So that's going to do 2 damage to each of those 5 units, and then it's going to boost these Ancrate Longswords by each one of the units that's damaged on front row, and then Dagger 2 Blades by all 5. So notably, it's not by each damage done or something like that. It's purely by each incidence of damage. So even though we did 10 damage, we only got 5 boost there, for those of you who are wondering how that worked. So we'll get the bleed there, and then I think we'll go for this attack on Arnulf. Get the boost, see, and you see how that works. So Giga Scorpion Decoction works great with this trio. They get boosted by 1 each time that attacks, and it attacks 6 times in a row. The important thing to stay aware of when it talks about damage, armor, whenever you hit armor, it does not count as damage. So you got to get rid of that. So, but for Morgvarg Heart of Terror, he'll cut through the armor and then hit the unit. So it can be a good way to toss armor as well. But we're just going to use this Gremist, get rid of that poison, just so we can work on that Purify. As you can see, just popped up in the top right. So it's a good way to work on contracts while we're out of here. And my son is still asleep, so we might actually be able to pull off a Lippy video real quick. Thank you guys. Have fun. Keep on gwenting. Let me know if you have other requests for other decks. If you have any specific cards you're interested as well, happy to do videos on those. But until then, have fun. Talk to you guys later.